came back. You want to learn how to make this box, don't you? Cool. Well, I'm Roger Campbell, Titan Woodworks. Here we go. The Keepsake box. I have an intro on YouTube that kind of showed you the box, the versatility of it. If you're a teacher wanting to learn how to do this, I'm going to go through those steps in this video series. Just real quick clips. If you want to maybe incorporate this project into your curriculum, you can just use these videos and show your kids this beautiful face that's not meant for TV, but just probably for radio. Anyway, they can watch us go through this and your class can go through the same. So, but if you're one of my students, then here's how we're going to do this. You're going to select your wood first. So you need to know how much wood you're going to need, or you need to know how much. I got it on the Board of Education up there, and we need a 38-inch long piece. So obviously there's certain woods that are going to fall into the criteria that I've given you. Due to the price of black walnut anymore, that's the price of like granite. So we're not going to be able to afford to give everybody a walnut box. But I've got some other stuff. So pick the woods that I have on the list to go through. I've scanned our selection here, and I see one just begging to turn into a box. I've got you know me, I'm kind of rustic and kind of naughty at the same time. So what better wood than knotty alder?
What's that?
I love this wood. It's light, it's easy to work with. The grain, man, once you sand it, it's so smooth and it's warm colored. The other good characteristic of alder is it routs nice. It doesn't dull your tools like that super hard hickory and oak does. And it sands nice, routs nice. And color, you know, you can leave it just plain old knotty alder and show off those knots a little bit, but it takes any color stain you want to put on it, and it looks natural and takes a nice sheen. Love working with stuff. So hey, it just happened to be here, and we need a 3.5-inch wide piece of wood for the box sides. We won't worry about the lid yet. We'll come back and pick that lid later on, and because that's going to be a whole different separate part of the box, and it doesn't even have to be the same kind of wood. I've had a lot of students that will do a light colored box and then do a nice dark wood on the top, and it looks great. Or, you know, switch them around completely. So you don't have to limit the students to just sticking with one type of wood either. You can let them move around the shop. You know, the lid is a great thing to start sorting through your scrap wood piles, because it's just a little bit less than the length you need for the planer, and you know, if it's 11 inches long, you're good. So moving along, here's our, hey, this has got numbers on both sides. Whoa, this is like a tape measure that was meant for TV. So anyway, I'm gonna put this on here and clamp it, and you should be able to see that I am right at 4 inches. Perfect. This is a 15/16 inch thick board, which I'll have to plane down to a 1/2 inch thick, and then we'll be ready to go. So I've got my wood picked out. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it to length, and that's up to you too. If you don't want to cut it to length, you know, this thing here's probably almost 48 inches long. I could make a bigger box, but I'm gonna stick with what I want my students to do, and we're gonna cut this to 38, and then we're gonna plane it, we're gonna rip it down to 3.5, then we're gonna plane it down to a 1/2 inch thick. And that's what we're gonna do in this video series before we move on to the next step. So we're gonna be teaching also the planer, the joiner, because some of the wood they're gonna get may not be straight, and there's techniques that we can put the wood over the joiner on the face of it and get those twisted parts untwisted a little bit, flatten them out, run them through the planer, and now we got a straight board that we can work with. So I'll teach them the joiner and the surface planer. Also in this step, we teach them the compound miter saws, because they got to cut the stuff to length. And then after they cut it to length, then we learn the table saw, and then we rip it to the right width. And then we're off to the races. So you, me, and the cart, we're gonna go over here and get this piece of wood ready to go. Follow me and watch your step. compound miter saw there. Let's go ahead and stop at the compound miter saw. Check the ends of your boards. Look at that ugliness. This thing apparently got a little wet, so there's some water damage, some mildew buildup right in there. I'm gonna cut that off. I don't want that. This side's pretty clean, pretty good. It looks like it was cut by a pretty decent tool. I'm gonna put this is my surfaced edge. Now, I have all my stuff straight line ripped on one edge at our lumber service provider, and so this is my edge. Keep an eye on, kids, don't use the ugly edge. This was at the sawmill. This was cut by somebody's Uncle Bubba in the woods, and he just running his chainsaw or his big bandsaw through this stuff as fast as he can. It's not square, it's not straight. So don't use that edge. Put my square up there. Woo, I like it. All right, so that's what I'm gonna measure off of. Hook that side, and I'm gonna pull 38 inches off of it. I guess you might as well watch. Square my line. Good side, straight side, goes against the fence. This one I'm going to unlock the rails. I could do this in a chop cut because it is less than 4 inches wide. Remember, our rule here in our shop is if the piece of material is less than 4 inches wide, you want to lock the rail. Because a lot of times an unlocked rail and a brand new wood student, if they have that blade out a little farther than what it should be, and the teeth are coming up out of the bottom of the table into that cut, seen it happen. It's not good. The teeth will lift that piece of wood right up off the bottom of the compound miter saw. It flips it around, does some crazy ninjutsu, unbelievably physically impossible stuff, and then I either have a kid with a bloody finger. They've never cut any fingers off, but I mean, it's just the fact that it just picks it up and just scares them. So you don't want that. So lock the rails if it's less than 4 inches. If it's wider than 4, unlock the rails. Make sure you're pulling clean out away from that material before you plunge down into it, and then make that cut to the back. Okay? Line this up. Looks good. Rails are locked. Start the machine. Make the cut. That almost worked. I got a tiny bit left over. I'm going to finish off. Apparently it was a wee bit wider than 4. All right, we're good there. So now we're going to move on and set up the table saw. So I'm going to do a quick cut. Hi.
Whoa, who's that?
Table saw, and now we're just going to set this up with the proper blade height. Got our blade guard on. Remember, if the fence is off of the throat plate, time for the blade guard. Anytime we get a little too close, if the fence is usually on the throat plate, that's our rule here at South. That then we got to be extra careful because we can't push a push shoe through here and have the guard on at the same time. So then we just put the splitter in and run it with the splitter. So we got the blade guard on. We're going to set the blade height and rotate that up. I like to get about 1 full tooth high when I'm ripping this stuff, and that's usually good enough. Then we'll set this at 3.5 and we'll run it through. Still there? Saw's booting up. Love these saw stops though. Got it. Okay. So now we got our piece. 3.5 inches is all we need for width. And then our next step is the planer. Gonna plane it down to 1/2 inch thick. Then we're ready to start putting all the cool stuff in this thing. Remember, when we're doing these boxes, we do everything that we want on the inside of the box before we cut the box to the box sizes we want. It's the trick. It's the magic that we do. So I'm gonna set up the planer. We'll go ahead and run that thing through and we'll get it down to 1/2 inch. That's gonna take a while. Don't need to torture you with all that video footage. And so if I knew how to do the time-lapse thing, then I might do that. We'll see. Anyway, we're gonna get this thing to 1/2 inch thick and then we'll move on. So bear with us. Okay, to explain this a little bit better, now we are at 1/2 inch thick. That's what we want. You know, I don't like 3/4 inch thick walls on a box. They're just too heavy, really too heavy. You lose space inside. I suppose if you're gonna do a really cool contour or something on the outside, a 3/4 inch thick box would lend itself to doing that. But for us, 1/2 inch thick is so much easier to work with. So that's what we do, is we do 1/2 inch thick material. Back here on the Board of Education, drew up a really high-tech graphic with dry erase markers. But you know, you can do this for your students too, and just you can keep it on the Board of Education all semester and just add to it or take stuff away. That's kind of how I do it. If I was really good at AutoCAD or something, I'd probably draw it up on a computer, Google SketchUp. I gotta learn how to do that. Anyway, 38 inches is the length, and then illustrate that it is 1/2 inch thick and 3.5 inches wide. That's what we got. So now we're ready. So looking at lots of my examples, this is the outside of the box. So the outside of the box, we're gonna run 2 little dados in there, and they're actually just saw grooves. You don't need a dado blade. You just run an 1/8 inch saw blade down it, and then another 1/8 inch saw blade, whatever distance you want them to do, or maybe let them decide. And then that's where our masonite is, our hardboard's gonna go. This stuff we painted a really cool aluminum color, so it looks like metal, but it's not. Tricked ya.
Unbelievable.
But African mahogany looks good. So on the inside, this is what we're gonna be doing next. So we're gonna run a 1/4 inch deep, 1/4 inch wide rabbet, okay? And that's just on the top edge of the box. That's where your lid's gonna fit in. On the bottom of the box, gotta have something on the bottom to hold the stuff in the box. So that's gonna be 1/4 inch thick hardboard plywood also. So we set up a 1/4 inch dado blade in the dado saw. And then I like to keep these dimensions so they don't have to do a whole lot of thinking, or you won't. You know, if you're making these boxes, make them simple. We set a 1/4 inch dado, a 1/4 inch high out of the table, a 1/4 inch away from the fence. So that's all you need to remember. Quarter, quarter, quarter. And then that's what you get. You get the dado, and that's what our bottom's gonna slide in. So once we do all that, to the whole length of the piece, then everything's gonna be consistent. It's all gonna line up. Then it's just all down to chopping it into your sides and your fronts and all that stuff. So, but that's when the fun begins, because then they're starting to miter and they're realizing that, man, I gotta have these measurements right on. So that's a little work, but that'll be next. So get your piece down to 3.5 inches wide, 30 inches long, and 1/2 inch thick, and then we'll be ready to go. I'll see you at the dado saw soon. I gotta go this way.